Welcome to Let's Talk Maywood on Diversity Today Media. I am your host, Dr. Reggie Ratlilf. And joining me is my co-host, my co-laborer in the vineyard, and investment expert, investment advisor, Terrence Hollingsworth. Terry, good evening, brother.
Hello, Dr. Ratlilf. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm on spring break, chilling like a villain and just getting my body and mind back in shape, man. So no complaints. How are you?
I'm good. You know you're aging yourself when you say chilling like a villain, right?
I know that's like the 70s, 80s. That's all right. I'm 54 years young and I can still hit the mat with the wrestlers and I can still play full court basketball. It may take you a little longer to recover, but I can still do it. So I
Well,
feel
I'm
good.
going to say I admire you because I ain't got nothing of that in me. I don't know if I can run a mile in under 15 minutes.
Right? Look, it was a story. Muhammad Ali at the end of his career, he said, can't remember who he fought in his last fight, but he said, my mind was telling me to swing, but my body wouldn't listen. So,
Yeah.
you know, when you reach that point, age wise, then it's time to make some adjustment. So,
You see that a lot with wrestlers, though, right? Where guys would they would be dominant, they'll retire for a couple of years, then they'll decide to come back, but they don't make the world team, don't make Olympic teams, and they go, "I'm smarter than I ever been, but
right.
my body just won't respond the way I need it to."
Well, when you hit that certain point, you think about it now in this era of athletics, you got the AAU basketball that's like basically year round to July, 4th of July weekend. Wrestling is the same with, freestyle and Greco. And then, all sports, swimming, baseball. I mean, all these AAU sports, which has been around since the 1930s, is now a point where it's a major business entity, the business of sports. And these
Yeah.
cats have been, competing since they were 5, that kind of thing. When you hit by your mid-20s, you're basically tired. I mean, that's why these NBA athletes get hurt so easily. That's why they're so fragile. They've been
Yeah.
playing sports since they got out of diapers. And
Yeah.
they it takes longer for them to adjust. We see in the NBA playoffs, John Moran, and Giannis, the Greek freak. I mean, these guys, Kevin Durant, he's been injured. I mean, Kawhi Leonard. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's just the wave of the present in terms of recovering.
So here's the question when we talk about the business of sports.
Yeah.
And there is an absolute where we see black men are taking ownership of these NBA and NFL teams, record valuations, right? So Washington just sold for $2 billion, right?
Yeah.
Are we buying at the wrong time? Are we is the black men that are buying these franchises? Now we're not buying the majority owner, but still,
Right.
are we buying them at the peak of the cycle?
Well, from an economic standpoint, Terry, I think that if you got money like the Byron Allens and the Jeff Bezos and the Magic Johnsons, Bezos is not black, but these guys will pop into my head. There is no bad time. I think about Jerry Reinsdorf, who owns the Chicago White Sox and the Chicago Bulls. His background is in the county. And so you never hear about the Chicago Bulls or White Sox rarely going over, the tax, luxury tax, because he's that kind of guy. But if you are a Washington Redskins franchise, I know it's the Commanders, but they're Redskins. I don't care.
All right.
Washington Redskins, all right. They had a terrible owner, the worst owner in NFL sports, one of the worst in NFL sports history, definitely for today's sports, NFL sports owners. But he still sold his franchise for $6 billion, got over 400%, return, and we're living through inflationary periods.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say though. I mean, if you see the ratings for the playoffs so far, they are not as high as they have been. Now, of course, we're on this long-term contract, and so everybody's making money and everything. Valuations are high.
Yeah.
But the question is, are we buying or are they buying at the peak of a cycle, business cycle? And, you know, the next go around, valuations are going to be coming down.
Yes, they're reached the peak of their business cycle. The example, in my opinion, we think about the value of these franchises now, Terry, compared to 10 years ago. The valuation of these franchises are as high as ever because of the economic times that we live in. Now, for the consumer, they may not agree because somebody has to pay those high ticket prices when the valuation goes up, right?
Yep.
So, so yeah, when you think about the value of these top franchises, the Lakers, the Bulls, the Knicks, the Redskins, and all these franchises, especially in big cities, they are as high as they've ever been. For me as a consumer, it's as worse as it's ever been for
Yeah.
two reasons. One, because of high ticket prices, because somebody has to make up the difference. And two, if I were able to muster up a couple $1,000s for my family to go to a Washington Wizards that game, they sure as hell better have Bradley Beal playing, because this load management stuff is inexcusable. So
Yeah.
I'll be investing a couple $1,000s, take my family, children, grandchild to the game, and Bill is not playing because of load management. Levine's not playing because he hurt his pinky finger. Kawhi Leonard doesn't play back to backs. The hell you don't. You need to get out there and play.
Yep.
Seriously, you need to get out there and play because I spend my hard-earned money saved up for my family to go to LA to watch you play because you're an entertainer. I don't hear no crap about load management or you don't play the second of back-to-backs.
So what's interesting about that conversation though is there's a conversation that you and I were having earlier about America, and is America at its peak business cycle as well, right? So I made a statement that says this: Maywood represents what's going on in Maywood represents what's going on in the overall American economy. And what is that? The increased number of Latinos that are moving in and buying homes, a decrease in blacks that are moving out.
Yeah.
And my assumption, I don't know the real data, but what's going on in North Maywood with white people? Is that number staying the same, or are they leaving as well?
So my dissertation in part was on the village of Maywood, and it was a mixed methodology, quantitative and qualitative data, and it wasn't that long ago. And from 2015, Terry, to 2023 to today, the level of affordability, the economic value in North Maywood is basically the same. Now there's a drop in Southern Maywood, Midwest Maywood, middle part of Maywood, as you get closer to Broadview on the south end, and then Central Maywood, when you talk about Madison Avenue, St. Charles Road. Now they're restructuring with commercial property, but they had to tear down a ton of homes in the process, which really has hurt the consumer in Maywood, which is part of the reason why many have left and why District 89, 209 is in the position that they're in economically and affordability for lack of technology, resources, things of that nature. But North Maywood is still basically the same. And with the influx of population change, it has actually dipped in terms of the last census, as far as like income, employment, crime, things of that nature. It has regressed economically. But you look at the overall data in Maywood, you see 45,000, which is, not bad. It's not in poverty for per household, but that's carried for the most part by North Maywood.
Well, I mean, here's the truth for me though, right? My dad as I've gotten older and moved into working in finance, I really understood how well um, he understood consumer finance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he was a career chef, so he was not a highly paid person,
Mm-hmm.
but he built this home from the ground. We always had two cars. We always went on
Yeah.
vacations,
Yeah.
right? And so when you compare that to um, let's say Michael Jackson, who high income, high net worth,
Yeah.
making $100 million a year,
Yeah.
spending $110 million a year, home got foreclosed on.
Yeah.
There's not much difference between him and maybe someone that's in Maywood that also living paycheck to paycheck
Right.
and getting their home foreclosed on, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah. Which causes me to ask, how are we managing our money? Obviously, Michael Jackson had a problem. Eventually, he came out that he had a drug problem. So, Terry, there are always stories behind people's financials, their inability to manage it or their ability to master it. But there's always a story. Some people are motivated by growing up in a single parent household or an abusive household where they couldn't afford food on some nights. That motivates some people to say, I'm going to be the best engineer, I'm going to be the best attorney, best accountant, whatever I'm going to be. And they take that and they use that energy to become fruitful and to live in Naperville or Schaumburg or Lake Forest or whatever the case may be. But then you have some who say, man, I grew up in a hard knock life. My household was abusive. I mean, yeah, my mom, she worked 2, 3 jobs. So that must, we were in Section 8. That must be the thing to do. And so what they do, they keep the cycle going to the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
So, you create your own future, at least economically, but everybody has a story.
So I'll put my other part about me that's true, right? My daddy was a preacher,
Yep.
right?
Guilty.
And
Hey.
I spent a fair share amount of time in church,
Yeah.
right? And I'll say this: there's a story of the fig tree, and the
Mm-hmm.
fig tree is what they Jesus seen the fig tree. He was hungry. He from far away. He was like, "Oh yeah, I can get me some food," and then found out that when he got there, it didn't have no food. What did he do? He cursed the fig tree,
Mm-hmm.
and it died. Right.
Yep.
And so what I see is number one, we should not. We have to change the narrative,
Yeah.
and it starts with not defining wealth through income, but defining wealth in the way that we ought to, which is defining wealth through assets.
Yeah.
And as long as we're accumulating assets, not just a primary home,
Mm-hmm.
but also investments in the stock market, investments in companies and things like this, we're 100 times better than we are if we don't, because
Right.
we have 400 years now of talking about education being the key to um, closing the wealth gap.
Yeah.
Except for in the last 50 years, we've become the most educated people in history.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? We're also the poorest,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so,
Mm-hmm.
just like the fig tree, when you talk about going out to Naperville and getting a big home, yet our net worth is still, $100 or less.
Yeah.
Someone is over in Maywood, they're looking over at people in Maywood going, well, look at my big home. I'm better than you. And in
Right.
fact, you are no better than anybody else, because why?
Mm-hmm.
You're living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Why? Because you don't have the ability, your lifestyle is built on you're financing it. So
Mm-hmm.
you're not buying your home in cash. You're not buying, you're buying stuff on credit cards.
Yeah.
You're financing your car, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
every aspect of your life that makes you appear to be wealthy is in fact is extracting your wealth because you're financing it. And as you know, when you buy something on credit, then you're paying 2 to 3 times more
Mm-hmm.
than if you paid in cash.
Well, history records, Terry, if you recall, that this nation was financed off debt. This
Yeah.
nation was financed off of principal plus interest. Even when when the United States gained its independence in 1776 or whatever, from from England and from the king, and it was debt. Still had debt. And think about this: the United States had a balanced budget one time in its entire history. Only one president balanced the budget. And for those of you who are educators who are not at the Village of Maywood board meeting, you tuned in, let the audience know who it was. But one time. Now, President Clinton, he left a surplus. And we all know what happened when President Bush got in office after that. But it just goes
Well,
to go ahead.
so here's the thing, right? That and this is this leads into the importance of what we talk about understanding finance, but also making sure that our kids understand finance, right?
Yeah.
So, how would you like to be Andrew Jackson, who was a terrible person for
One
the
of the worst
record,
ever. One of the worst presidents ever in
but
history.
he still
Suck it
made,
down the budget.
balanced the budget, paid off all Americans' debt for the next person to come right behind you and put that debt right back on. And every other president since have added to the deficit, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Bill Clinton, you have a surplus, right? And then presidents after that put on more debt, right?
Yeah.
Well, how does that feel when you have your kids that you sacrifice for to put some money away for them? Maybe don't go on vacation. Maybe buy less of a car, any of
Right.
these things.
Right.
And at the end of the day, just so you can pass something down to them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the one thing that you fail to pass down is financial education.
Mm-hmm.
So in one generation, the
Mm-hmm.
money's gone.
Gone.
In the average time, what is the average time of someone that receives an inheritance that they spend their inheritance? Do you know?
No, I know it's not long. It's not double digit years. It's only a
Take a
couple of years.
guess.
3 years.
How about 30 days?
30 days. That's right.
30 days, right?
I'm not
That's
surprised.
when I first started hearing, I was shocked.
Yeah.
How can you
It is
go through?
shocking.
How can you go through your inheritance in 30 days?
Hold on.
Right?
Depends on how large the inheritance is.
Well, not really, right? We're talking averages, right? So, of course, if it's 10,000, that's probably a week.
Yeah.
But
That's not even a car. That's
for
not even a
real.
car. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
think about guys like the Vanderbilts. I forgot the guy that's on TV.
Yeah. Anderson Cooper.
Anderson Cooper.
Mhm.
He's a Vanderbilt. But at one point, they were the richest family in the country. And today they're not. Why? Because they failed to teach financial education to the kids and the grandkids. So by the time it got to the kids, they continued this lifestyle of partying and holding lavish parties and things like that without doing business, and the business didn't grow. And eventually, you spend up the money.
Well,
Right?
this is something that's really important to note regarding Maywood. Vanderbilt is an excellent example, as opposed to like the Rockefellers, right? Rockefellers, they got money to last lifetimes, right? The J.P. Morgan Chase and family, lifetimes, things of that nature. But in terms of Maywood, and I know people are going to join the podcast after it's over because of the Village Maywood board meeting. But in terms of Maywood, you have today's politicians who are living off the back of their predecessors who did stabilize Maywood. That's always debatable from the point where, Joe Freelon, the late Joe Freelon, was voted the first African American mayor in 1981, I believe. And then you had the Don Williams, you had the Henderson Yarborough, you had the Ralph Connor, you had the Miss Edwina Perkins. But even Miguel Jones, Trustee Jones, admitted that a lot of what's happening now is the plans that were created by Mayor Perkins.
Yeah.
but people will make it seem like she was doing nothing and she was just a figurehead, that she was just a smokescreen. Well, that's not the reality. That's why I say, Terry, there's history and then there's his story. And his story is not always true. History speaks truth. And so when you think about the property in Maywood, there are a lot of people, like you mentioned, like all over the country, who are house rich, cash poor,
Mm-hmm.
which means they celebrate putting that 1% down on a home. You know, they got the 4 bedrooms, the quarter acre, half acre, and that kind of stuff, you know, and they celebrate. But then within a year, they're like, oh, snap. You know, we got to think our property tax that's due.
Yeah,
I can
right.
afford this $8,000 tax bill and pay my mortgage. That's not gonna work. So financial education is important.
Even if you can maintain that, which so many people have, the problem that we have is that we're not building sustainable wealth, right? We're not building wealth that is passed down to our grandkids. We are not, um, in most cases, um, we're not we're not putting enough money into our retirement savings. And so it becomes this big cycle of appearing to be wealthy, right? Living like a fig,
Yeah.
and not doing so well. And,
Right.
and unfortunately, there's not a lot of people out here speaking honesty to people or
Mhm.
helping them understand this in ways that matter.
Right. When I think about, my father who passed away a couple years ago, and the land that was left behind in Mississippi, the home in Maywood, and the money in his bank accounts and things like that, his pension from the working for almost 40 years at post office and all that. My family, we were talking about how we would divide that and all that after paying his funeral costs, which he was a veteran, so he didn't have to pay,
Yeah.
for that. But a couple of family members were tripping. Um, That's what usually happens when somebody die. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, right.
Negroes come out the woodwork. Oh yeah, that was my daddy too. But anyway,
He
um,
promised me this house.
right. He probably his house and the timber that's on the land in Mount Olive, Mississippi.
Yeah, right.
Out of here with that mess. So you have this fighting stuff. I think. I think Ron is trying to call. So I'm gonna minimize the screen and see if he comes in. So just keep talking, Terry.
No,
Yeah.
so the one thing that I think is important, and we talk about Maywood and how Maywood looks comparable to um,
Ron.
the overall nation, and what's really what we have to start advancing more conversations about wealth creation. What creates real wealth? The vast majority of people, believe it or not, we're in an era now where everyone is talking about um, being entrepreneurs, starting business, having side hustles, and all these things. And the truth is, we would probably be better off investing in the stock market. I sound like a broken record, but if you look at the historic rate of return of the stock market versus every other asset class that's out there, the stock market has been the greatest wealth creation vehicle in the history of the world. Plain and simple, not residential real estate, not even speculative real estate. They all have their place, but the truth is that for most people, when you tell me that you're going to work 12 hours a day or even 10 hours a day, and then you're going to get off and have to work another 6 or 8 hours after that, most people don't have it in them to do so. And so, how do you then become and capture the American dream? How do you capture the ability to, benefit from all this hard work? And it literally is, how about let's start learning more about investing? How about let's get more comfortable investing and see what the next 10 years bring us? Dr. Ratliff, you are back on, sir.
Thank you. I just sent Ron the link to come in. He just got out of track practice. So as soon as he enters, go ahead and bring him in and I'll introduce him for the time remaining. So that's what happens, man, when you are running youth programs. Sometimes you get so passionate, you go over time. So when he comes in, we'll bring him on to the podcast. But what you're saying makes sense, Terry. You always say the greatest generation, wealth generation, is the baby boomer generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's incumbent that, first of all, we have the right people who are teaching financial education. And I say this time and time again, not to throw shade on anybody, but if you don't have the credentials to teach even personal finance, you are doing a disservice to your community because they take what you share. If they're serious, they take what you share and they apply it to their life. And if it doesn't work out, or when it doesn't work out, it's because they receive bad information. And we know through social media, there are a lot of Facebook financial experts.
Yeah.
But if they don't have the credentials, then they should not try to even attempt to teach. And I
So this is
understand.
the last thing. This is the last thing that I'll say. And if I'll offer to anyone, I have a thing called a financial advisor checklist, and I've had this thing that it was really a prospecting tool for me, but it's relevant to help you even understand the person that's talking to you about finance. Because the truth is when I got into the business, and this is the case for most people, you're taught this how to close sales, you're taught how to raise money. It's a different part of the business when you start talking about how to manage the money. And so, walking through people through some very simple principles about how you would like your money to be invested and as it relates to the market is really important. So, we'll offer that if anybody wants to get that. It's a one sheeter. Reach out to us. What is your email,
So my
Reggie?
email address is sratlif68 at yahoo.com. And we'll be more to oblige your request. But I mean this when I say our people can ill afford to absorb bad information from um, from random comments from random people who are not in tune with the world of finance. And we have to debunk that theory that anybody could talk about finance. You just
Yeah,
can't. You can't. So I'm glad you put that there. We're going to continue to push this envelope because this is a safe space. This is the podcast where we talk about things, and we would love to have those of you who are experts in the field to come in because it's always good to hear a different voice. As long as
yeah.
you qualify for that area. We brought in nurses, registered nurses. We brought in insurance experts like Art recently. Art Jarrett. We brought in people who are involved with athletics. Ron himself is a youth leader. So we brought in all different types of people, very diverse fields. But these are people who are experts. These are people who are trained and developed. And so we don't just create a space for false narrative, if you will. Maywood can ill afford any more false narrative. We have to be able to come together and move forward for their interests that's in the best interest of Maywood.
Yeah.
Bringing in a grocery store, having a strategic plan finally, reducing crime, increasing employment, reducing unemployment, recreating economic viability, where the money would circulate 2, 3 times like it did during the 1970s, 80s, and beginning of the 90s. Those are important to me as somebody who grew up in Maywood.
So I see Ron is in the green room.
All
So
right.
we're gonna bring him on. I'm gonna sign off, but I enjoy talking finance. I'll talk with anybody and share my experiences, and hopefully everyone gets something out of it.
Absolutely. I know I do every time we talk. So always good talking to you, bro.
See ya.
All right. So we're going to bring on Ron Kirkhom. Ron is a good friend of mine. He's actually a fellow 1986 Providence Reeds graduate. Um, he currently resides in Kansas City, Missouri. Ron played 4 years of NCAA basketball. That's college basketball for those of you who don't know, and that combines with his career average of 30.7 points per game. He also played 6 years overseas. He is in his 28th year of serving kids particularly those kids who are in trauma. He is a behavioral interventionist and a teacher, grade school head basketball and track coach. And without further ado, I'd like to bring on Ron Kirkhom.
Hey, what's going on, man?
How you doing, man? How you doing? Good to see
All
you.
right, living this Kansas City life. I can't get away from these Chiefs fans, man.
Oh, no. So did they give you a hard time being that you from the Chicago area?
All the time, my wife said you would never be a Chiefs fan. So when I went to Cali to go see my big brother, I wore a Chiefs shirt, and everywhere I went, Chiefs.
That's what's up, man. Well, I know you're just getting out of track practice, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm glad you were able to join us. We held it down. Terry and I held it down till you were able to come on. But, I just want to take a little time to introduce you to our audience, those who may not have met you or know your great work. You grew up in Maywood, right?
Absolutely.
So where did you go to elementary school?
Went to Irving. What was it? 5th grade. We moved from the west side, 5th grade through 8th grade, and then on to East from there.
Nice. So you were a Tiger, Irving Tiger.
That's right.
Yeah, it's all good. I won't hold it against you. I'm a Garfield Giant through and through. So we had our rivals. So, but we know some of the same people. Pat Winters and some other guys from Irving and such. So your experience at Proviso East, Ron, talk about that. Your 4 years at East.
Well, first of all, you guys, you 86 wrestlers still hold the standard to 1986. I remember you guys were number one in the nation. I was like, man,
Yeah.
this little town right here, part of Chicago, number one in the nation. I couldn't grasp that as a kid. When you saw it in the USA Today, I was like, these dudes are really doing it.
Yeah.
But it didn't hit me until college when I started bragging about my town, where I came from.
Right.
And nobody knew where it was or who we were until I started naming some big names. But my time at East was, it grew me up. It made me into the man I am now. It made me tough. A lot of people didn't know that right after East, I was on the streets because my mom left. She was on drugs. Everybody has a story.
Yeah.
I used to sleep in the wreck, pop the door open the summer of '89 before I went to JUCO. Because I was 2 years late. But anyway, it taught me to be the man I am now. It gave me all the tools I needed. With that being said, I was a skittish, kind of timid kid growing up, but I knew everybody.
Right.
I respected everybody. I didn't get into fights.
Right.
The gangs gave you a pass if you was an athlete. I mean, that's silly. All over the country, if you're an athlete, the gangs and the pimps and the people on the street, they want to push you out. I mean, don't be like us, okay? I appreciate that. But that's what got me to where I am now. My only regret was I didn't take my load. He's still there somewhere in the town. Still there in the streets. Yeah. He's 52 now, 52.
Okay.
But he's not in the penal system anymore. But my time at East was, my only regret there was I didn't play for East, and I should have.
You should have.
I made the freshman team, and people were like, man, your name was up on the list. Coach not going to come looking for you. You made the cut. Tried on my junior year, wasn't fundamentally sound. I was raw talent, though. And I took that gift and went to Oklahoma and played junior college ball. Yeah. And went on to play Division II in Missouri. Supposed to set out and play at OU for Billy Tubbs, but that didn't happen. But anyway, I played in Mexico City for 4 years, and then I played in Uruguay for 2 years. And a girl I was dating in Kansas City got me into working with kids, and I never looked back. Like, you remember Madden's, that hospital?
Oh yeah, I do. Oh yeah.
That's the same kind of kids dealing with trauma, who's been abused, who's been self-mutilators, the kids that's been put out in the streets. Anything you can think of been done with a kid or any human on that capacity. I work with those kids every day in Kansas City in an alternative school.
Wow.
I worked 20 years in psych hospital, children's psych hospital, so that's what I do. Nice.
Well, I commend you, brother, for turning a tragic situation to a triumphant victory, because I didn't know about that part, and I knew that you were a great basketball player because we had a freshman gym class together, and we would play full court on the gym, And, and I remember you dribble. There guys who try to double team you, and you did this behind the leg dribble. I remember you used to throw it between your legs, yeah, and spikes. I was like, how do I remember this 40 years later? But you weren't just a good dribbler, you were a good player. You know, you can say you may have been a little raw, but you knew how to play ball because that's what we were taught growing up. So
all of us.
Yeah. What was it, whether it was Winfield Scott or Tim Park or, you know, Waterworks, you know, Ninth, wherever, you know.
Right.
So, you know, that was one thing because when I found out that you didn't play, I was like, why didn't Ryan play? Man, you know, I think it was Reggie Jordan. Reggie didn't play either.
Me and him got cut the same year, our junior year. And he went on to play, I think, like 7 or 8 years in the league.
Yeah, for the Lakers. I remember playing for the Lakers.
He played for Minnesota, the Lakers, a few other teams, the Bucks, I think. And my biggest regret, I mean, I learned from that was my mentor in Oklahoma City, a guy came through the rec. I forgot his name. He's an older guy. He said, man, you ain't going to school nowhere? I'm like, I want to. I mean, he said, my cousin coming through here going to Indiana. He can get you to a school in Oklahoma. And with that being said, I went and stayed with him and his family in Oklahoma City. And they took care of me. He got me in the JUCO. And the only thing I did wrong was I didn't sit out a year to get my grades up. You know, I had a lot of crappy classes, tennis, basketball operations, and they didn't transfer to the D1 at OU. And so I went to a D2, and here we are. But life goes on.
Yeah, it does. I want to talk about that for a moment, Ron, because, you know, as you know, today's Maywood is not the same as when we were growing up, you know, that's, you know, that's no knock. It's just a sign of the times. I mean, that's what's going on everywhere, as you can attest to working with you. But at what point when you were going through your challenging times, did you start to say, I need to pick myself up and move forward? Was it an individual? Was it self-motivation? What was it? God, of course. What was it?
Okay, it was quite a few things that got me going. First of all, it was those 21 blocks, those square blocks we had in Maywood, and all the great people and great mentors we had as kids we looked up to. They didn't even have to talk to us and tell us what to do. We just looked up to them and knew where we were going from there. We all had a plan. Of course, you had a plan. I had a plan. My dream was to move in the suburbs, get a 2-car garage, and have 2 or 3 kids. That's a silly kid dream, but I did that. But my motivation was I wanted out of Illinois, just not Maywood. I wanted something better for myself and to start my life. And my hope was if I didn't make it in the league, I would open up something dealing with food or a couple of restaurants or something like that. But like I said, the lady I was dating in Kansas City, where St. Joseph, Missouri, where Missouri Western School. Actually, Fly went there, Reggie Jordan's brother.
Really?
He went there, and I kind of remember him coming home, said Missouri Western, practice jersey, and I ended up going there.
Wow.
But that's what did it for me. I wanted to better myself. My brother, I'm in the middle of my 2 brothers. One was in rival gangs, the 2 gangs we grew up with. One was in one was in the other.
Right.
I'm like, I'm out of here. I was like, I'm peacing out.
Right.
And
right.
I never looked back, but I went back to visit, and over the years, hearing how much crime we have and how it's just hopelessness back in the town.
Yeah.
That motivated me to be better, but at the same time, look at where we came from, how it is now. I don't like that.
Right. I'm discouraged as well. It's it is discouraging because that's not the Maywood standard. That's not the 21 block standard. That's not the Maywood that brought up the Doc Rivers and the Sterling Browns, the Shannon Brown, you, me, Randy McFarland, Vandre Jones, countless female athletes, scholars.
You could go on and on.
Yeah. So, I mean, I thank you for, talking about our nationally ranked wrestling squad. But, to be honest, Ron, we couldn't have done it without you guys' support. I mean, we were one community. We were coherent. We were cohesive. We were one community. And it was amazing how we vibed. And when we won the state championship, we won it together. It wasn't just wrestling. It was
Right.
everybody. We supported as a community. So that was what's special. That's what Maywood. That's what Maywood was. That's who we
And
were.
you 100 all every day, all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
We weren't going trying to take each other out, or I'm gonna
Right.
go to your house and blast everybody. That wasn't that type of ball game, man. And
No.
one
No.
of my partners was a class a year under us. Rest in peace, Curtis Jenkins.
Yeah.
That was my guy. I used to hang with him and Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson used to wrestle for a little bit.
Right. Sure did.
They were my boys right there. And
Yeah.
but the thing is, like you said, we were so close knit, cohesiveness. Everybody respected everybody. I remember the faces. I don't remember the names because it's been too long.
Yeah.
Big Vic,
Big Vic.
Rick,
Yeah.
wrestled heavyweight for you.
Ricky Stewart.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
the white guy with the curly hair. I don't remember his
Hey,
name.
Lily. Yeah.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our coaches, our white coaches,
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
black
Ed
coaches.
Cartwright. Cuss. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
didn't. We didn't. I went to Cartwright's house, or a house he rented, and helped put up drywall. I don't know if you were
Yeah.
there. He paid us, things
Mm,
like that.
I missed that
I
one,
look
but yeah.
forward to that. The
Yeah.
older guys that motivated us without even talking to. I mean, they didn't even have to instruct us. We
Yeah.
just looked up to them. Mac.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
um, who I can't remember their names right off. Your brother Onion used to beat
Yeah.
up on me.
That
I'm like,
was
damn,
love.
what you hit me in the arms, man? Shut up.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Rest in peace, Milton, his
Yeah.
boys.
Yeah.
It's starting to come back. I remember all that, and they raised us too. They looked up
They
to
did.
us. They took care of us. We didn't have anything to eat, or you
Yeah.
got any money?
Yeah.
Put some money in your pocket. That
Yeah.
was it, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember all of that, and that's what makes me smile and go hard every day.
Every day, man. It reminds me, Ron, of how you're talking about those who came in before us, how they'll come on the court or the wrestling room to work us out, to talk to us, to motivate us. You know, they'll come to the classroom and say, you better do your homework, whether they're doing well in life or not. You know, they always motivate us to to be the
To
best
do
that we
right
can.
every day.
Hmm.
What was I remember the Italian guy. He was AD, Mr. Franelli or Fantelli.
Oh,
What was
Mr.
it called?
Farinella. Mr. Farinella.
I
Yep.
remember him.
Yep.
Hit your
Fair.
coach,
Yeah. Yeah. Hit, Coach Hit. Absolutely. Even the principal. I mean,
Mr.
um,
Frazier,
yeah.
all of them.
Yeah, because Mr. Marino, may he rest in peace as well. So many people. Our principal at the time, he was a state championship basketball coach for their first championship.
Mm.
So the name slipped my mind, but we have so many people to thank from all
Oh man,
different backgrounds and stuff, Ron. But your basketball career took you overseas,
right?
and talk about that for a moment. How was that experience for you?
Um, we always, especially athletes, we're harder on ourselves than anybody else. We're our worst critic. I still had a sour taste in my mouth from not sitting out instead of going to the D2. I was a D2 All-American as well, and playing on the highest level I could have played on would have been playing for the Oklahoma Sooners. At that time, it was run and gun with Billy Tubbs. Right after Mookie Blaylock left there, I would have been right behind that group. Every now and then that bothers me, but I know everything happens for a reason. I went to Mexico City. I was a young guy, 24, I think. Didn't have anybody guiding me as far as relatives. Everybody was split up all over the country. I had some twins. They were almost a year old, so I was like, I can't leave them, but I had to leave. And the off season, I used to come back. I wasn't making much, 35,000. That was in 92, 93, 94, 95. But it grew me up. And I'm still trying for the NBA. I went to like 6 or 8 different camps and never made the cut because I was at a small school. Of
Right.
course you can score 30, 28 points at a small school. They say always you're not playing anybody. I'm like, that rim is still orange, that ball is still round,
Right.
but that didn't matter. And I was always thinking about something Keith Carter told me. He said, if you can play here and shine here in Maywood, you can play anywhere in the world. And why I say that is, it was so hard for me to get by this dude or score on this dude Keith Carter made me work every day, all day. I was getting mad. Like, dude, he go guard somebody else? He said, no, I got you wiping the shoes off. You know how he was. Him and Randy always want to play D and smother you. But
Yeah. No, say that again. What did you say about Keith Carter? What?
Keith Carter, everywhere we played, if we were there on opposite teams, he's wiping his shoes off, we indoor, or not, coming up to me, and I know he's going to guard me. I'm like, hey, man. He said, don't start that. Can you guard somebody else? I said, well, why would I guard somebody else? I'm guarding you. I take care of you. Y'all ain't winning. And
right.
I took pride in that. And then when I was able to score on him, not at will, but it got easier, I was like, if I can do this on Keith, ain't nobody stopping me.
Right.
And when I left the crib, I was like, oh, it's over now. Mm-hmm. And a partner I had out west, he knew Keith from playing in there too. Right. And he said, dude, this dude plays defense like it's his last day playing ball. I said, that took me to new heights because that's the best defender that I've ever played against.
Wow.
And still is. And his nephew plays the same type way. Get away from me, man.
Right.
So that made it easier for me from that day on when I left the crib going to Oklahoma, going to Missouri, going to Texas, wherever I played. I was like, that's it. Get ready to rep the woods.
Yes, sir. And that you've done. That you have done. And coincidentally, the coaches were at our time, I'm sorry, the principal was Tom Milliken, who was the state championship basketball coach.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember that name. And one thing the one thing I didn't like about, I know it was a system growing up, and I'll feel bitter because I was cut. Mm-hmm. You know how back in our time, especially at East, you had to go through the system, freshman, sophomore, unless you moved into the town and you were solid, you would make a team.
Like Sherrell Ford.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I got cut, I didn't know the fundamentals, like to deny the ball's on the opposite side of the court, drop down and see the ball, see your man over here. I was standing on the line looking at the guy, and I could get backdoored. I didn't know things like that. Mm-hmm. I thought maybe they could teach me that, but in that time, we had a system. You need to be ready now. I understood that, but I didn't like it because at the same time, I'm hooping with the same guys that I got cut with. And they asked me, dude, why ain't you on the team? I couldn't explain it, but I do get it as an older guy now. I understand it, so I take all what I had growing up in Maywood and what I know from the game or knowledge from the older cats. I instill in my grade school kids right now and every day.
Let's talk about that, Ron, because definitely your journey is warranted to be recognized, which I'm sure had a lot to do in addition, because God puts us in certain positions at certain times, and it's always the right time. So, think about what you went through and where you are today and giving back to this particular youth population. Talk about that experience, if you don't mind.
Okay. My little brother went to Prove. You remember Prove? And you remember Prove Alternative School?
Oh yeah, right there next to Garfield.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And to me and you growing up, I know to me, we thought it was a bad kid or a bad boy, Audi home type place. You're bad, you're in trouble. It wasn't. It was just for kids dealing with trauma and issues and couldn't function in a regular setting. I think I lost you.
No, we just put on you because you're talking.
Okay. Yeah. Just kids that couldn't handle regular classroom general education. They need not special needs, but special assistance.
Right.
Not totally special ways. They could be ODD, obsessional defiant disorder, or ADHD. It has smaller issues that need a smaller classroom. But anyway, I worked in a psych hospital like Madden's for 20 years. And then this is my 8th year in the public school system here. It was right outside of Kansas City, a place called Grandview.
Okay.
And so it's a small community, about like Maywood, a little smaller, about 18,000. Okay. But I know all the kids all the way up to juniors now because I started coaching 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. My wife said, "You love sports so much, you like basketball, you should start coaching." I was like, I like going to the game. She said, "But you know the game." I was like, "Oh Lord, let me go ahead and try." As soon as I went in, they hired me as an assistant for a year. This is my 3rd year head coach in 7th and 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And I did 3 years assistant for track, and now this year I'm head. um, once you learn the ropes of the head position,
Yeah.
everything else is easy. The sport is easy.
Right.
Track, I ran track at Irving, but
Hmm.
and on basketball is real easy for me. But at the same
Right.
time, it's about the kids. You want to see
Yeah.
them grow and blossom
Yeah.
in every area, and it's never about sports. I try to tell the parents that, and they're like, "What do you mean?" I said, "We're gonna instill everything I have in these kids. I want them to grow up as be responsible, exceptional
Yeah.
adults in the community,
Yeah.
and want them to go on to school, go to college, and say this is just the beginning.
Right.
It's more. It's more. This is just the stage. I put it
Right.
that way." And they
Right.
were like, thank you so much, coach. But it's different all the time because you have kids that don't have shoes, don't have transportation, and I can see it because I can see myself in a lot of them right
Right.
away.
Right.
Um, of course, I like winning, but I like seeing them move on
Right.
and get better.
Right.
So I'm not going anywhere. I'm 50. I'll be 55 in July,
Nice.
and I'm trying to retire by 59,
Nice. Nice.
60. But um, the area I live in was like Maywood when we were growing up.
Mm.
It's about mm, 55, 60% white. I mean, black, and then
Hmm.
it's Hispanic and white.
Right.
So diverse.
Same with me.
Uh huh.
Like, right.
Yeah, but I
Same with
rep I
Maywood.
rep I rep
But
Maywood all the
obviously,
time. Go ahead.
we have some delay. Can you hear me?
I can hear
Can
you
you hear me
now.
now?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that you keep up with the youth. I'm sure you can still run full court with them. How do you keep yourself in shape? Dealing with track and basketball players, youth.
First of all, I gotta get my eating back on track. I lost 60 3 years ago, and I gained
Mm.
30 back. But I never stopped working out. I just got lazy with the eating part. But I'm gonna get back on it when school's out. It's it comes back to you. That's like one of your students or your son or somebody grab you in the house. And yeah, hey,
Right,
man, you want me to put you on a single leg real quick, or
right,
you want to Barbara carry into this couch?
right.
And some of my students say at track, we talk about wrestling sometimes. Some of them wrestle. How do you know that, coach? I say I grew up. As a
Mhm.
matter of fact, the class I was in, they were number one in the country. Kids can't fathom that when you tell them
Right,
something like that.
right,
And
right,
like I tell them, every week in junior college, I was number one through number 3 and 4 in scoring every week when the score sheets come up. And they
yeah,
look at me now, yeah, whatever. Okay. But um, this is what I tell the kids. It's your turn now.
yeah.
And I break it down to them. I'm here for whatever you need. I can help you with. I got you. And I got a 14-year-old daughter. I got twins that are 30, a young man, young lady. I got another young man that's 29.
Mm.
And I'm for the kids, man. That's it.
Yeah. That's what's up, man. I appreciate you saying that.
But
But
no,
I have a serious
but
question for you, Ron. You're in Kansas
uh-huh.
City, right? So,
Right.
what barbecue is better? Kansas City, Chicago. Try to put
Man, come on.
I had to put you on the spot because you there, man. I hear both.
Well, I'm gonna say this. Um, KC has about 135 store barbecue places,
Wow.
and it's spread out like over like Chicagoland, Kansas City
Yeah.
land. It's spread out.
Right.
There's 4 main ones. You probably heard of Gates Barbecue here
Yeah. Yeah.
or Arthur Bryant's.
Yeah. Heard of them too.
That's,
Yeah.
that's another one called Jack Stack. Um, and I believe there's one more, Oklahoma Joe's. It's called KC Joe's.
Okay.
But me being here for 32 years now, I don't know what kind of question that is right there, doctor.
You good at responding. You good at reacting. You good.
Yeah, because I grew up on Hillary and Cooks.
Right on 17. Oh man. Yeah. Yeah.
They can't touch our hot links.
Now the single link, the single sausage, the rib tips. Ah.
I tell them about the sandwiches. It's only 2 places to get rib tips here. I tell them about the sandwiches, the Italian beef, the combo, the gyros, and hot dog. Man, they say you can get a hot dog anywhere. Oh no, you can't.
Wrong answer. No.
Right.
No. Wow. Well, Ron, I know that you are on your way from to your destination, from practice to your destination. Want to thank you again for coming on, my fellow
Absolutely.
class brother and Maywoodian. I want to give you a minute or two to make closing thoughts to our audience
Absolutely.
and continue the
Absolutely.
great work out there in KC, brother. The stage is yours.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You already worked out today?
You know it. I ran this morning.
All right. I got to get out there now.
I'm on spring break, so I had the advantage. I'm going home though for the weekend. I'll be home. As a matter of fact, our state championship squad and some other alumni from wrestling is going to meet up this weekend. We are because we haven't gotten together in a long time, man. So
Oh, that's cool, man. That's
yeah, so
cool.
me, us, Keith Brown, Murphy and
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
brother. Yeah, so yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Eat a pizza puff for me, man.
I will, no doubt. But go ahead, man.
All
Yeah,
right,
man.
man. Appreciate it.
Go ahead. You got any closing thoughts you want to share? Or you good?
Um, thanks for inviting me. It feel like I'm home every time I talk to somebody that's from home. Um, all I can say is we repped the hell out of the woods. I can tell you, and I will say Bellwood as well. So many great people. We vibed over there as well as they vibed with us, Lonzo Verge, and all those guys over there. We could talk until 10 o'clock tonight, man. I'm getting emotional thinking about the crib, man, because that's my heart, and that's why I'm spreading seeds in Kansas City, man. I appreciate it.
That's what's up, man. I echo those words exactly, man. Anytime I think about Maywood, it just makes my eyes water, brings tears to my eyes. Because I tell people out here in the DMV and the DC area, I'm from Maywood. I don't say I'm from
Right,
Chicago. I'm from Maywood. And
right.
so, got a rep, man. We're doing great work in our respective community. Much love to you, brother. Keep up the good work. Can't wait to see you. If
Absolutely,
you make it to the alumni picnic this summer, hope to see you there, man.
absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Pleasure, man. Peace to you. It's always good to talk to a fellow Pirate alumni. Provides we has produced great leaders, not in the athletic spectrum only, but also in the world of higher academia and their various other fields. We are a very diverse community. We always have been. We always will be. I'd like to thank you for joining us on this podcast. Tune in for our next podcast when we invite our next phenomenal guest. Until then, I am Dr. Reggie Ratlilf. Be safe, stay focused, and God bless.